Welcome to the deep dive. So you've brought us some really detailed material today. It looks like excerpts from a market report by Cognitive Market Research.
That's right. And the topic is, well, it might seem a bit everyday at first glance. Screwdrivers.
Screwdrivers.
What?
Yeah, I admit, when you first said it, I thought, okay, a screwdriver, what's there to dive into? But then you see these numbers, billions of dollars.
Exactly. It sounds simple, but it's a huge global market. Shows how even basic tools underpin a lot of economic activity.
Absolutely. So our mission today is to kind of unpack this data you've shared, get a handle on the market size, where it's heading, and find the interesting nuggets in these projections. Okay, let's unpack this.
Where should we start? Global overview.
Yeah, let's get the big picture first. So according to this report, the global market back in 2021, it was already pretty big. 4,144.36 million. That's what, over $4 billion?
Over $4 billion, yes. And it's not static. The forecast shows pretty consistent growth. They project it hitting $4,904.5 million by 2025.
Okay, so growth in the near term.
And then continuing up to, let's see, 6,868.62 million by 2033.
Wow, so adding another couple billion over the next decade or so. What's the growth rate on that?
The report calculates the compound annual growth rate, the CAGR, at 4.3%.
4.3%. That sounds steady. Solid.
It is. And what's fascinating here, isn't some crazy explosive growth. It's the persistence. That 4.3% tells a story about ongoing fundamental activity.
And things like construction, manufacturing.
Yeah.
Household use too, I guess.
Exactly. Those sectors, it's like a reliable economic pulse. People are still building things, making things, fixing things all over the world.
Right. Even with everything going digital, you still need to physically screw things together. Okay, so that's the global view. But the report breaks it down by region, and that's where it gets really interesting, I think. The dynamics look quite different.
Very different. Should we start with the biggest market, Asia Pacific?
Yeah, let's do that. The report flags it as having the highest potential too, right?
It does. Largest market and highest growth potential. Started at $1,719.91 million in 2021 and projected to reach a staggering $3,035.93 million by 2033, almost doubling.
Just under doubling. Wow. Okay, drilling down into the countries here. China, the numbers are they leap off the page.
They really do. $507 million in 2021, projected to hit $915 million by 2033.
That's enormous.
It is. And if you connect that to the bigger picture, it speaks volumes about, continued industrialization, urbanization, massive infrastructure pushes probably.
Makes sense. But it's not just China and APAC, right? The report shows others.
Oh, definitely. Japan shows significant growth, too, from around $298 million up to $490 million. Okay. And India's trajectory is really steep, more than doubling from $173 million to $349 million projected.
So huge growth there as well. What about places like South Korea?
South Korea is also strong, projected to hit $333 million. And then you've got, Southeast Asia as a whole looking at nearly $245 million by 2033. Australia over $148 million, Taiwan over $128 million. It's broad-based growth.
Yeah, it really paints a picture of Asia Pacific as the main engine here.
It certainly looks that way from this data, a combination of scale and rapid development in many key areas. Okay, so shifting gears from that kind of explosive growth, North America.
Right, North America, another huge market in absolute terms. What were the numbers? $961 million in 2021.
Yep, $961.492 million, growing to a projected $1,463.02 million by 2033. Steady growth. Maybe not the same percentage jump as APAC, but still adding almost $500 million. And
within North America, it's got to be the U.S. driving a lot of that.
Oh, absolutely. The U.S. dominates the region in this report. It goes from $777 million in 2021 to $11,167 million, so over $1.1 billion by 2033. The absolute dollar increase there is massive, even if the percentage isn't as high as, say, India.
The scale is something else. It suggests it's a huge amount of ongoing activity, even in a developed economy. What about Canada and Mexico?
They're showing solid growth, too. Canada projected up to $185 million, Mexico to $110 million by 2033.
So for North America, it's less about that initial rapid build-out we see in part.
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.
So for North America, it's less about that initial rapid build-out we see in parts of Asia and more about sustained activity. DIY, pro trades?
Probably a mix of all that. Sustained economic activity, replacement cycles for tools, robust professional trades, maybe a strong DIY culture contributing as well. Growth built on an established base.
Okay, got it. Let's cross the Atlantic. Europe, Another big one.
Yep, Europe starts at $845 million in 2021 and is projected to grow to $3,318 million, $3,318.77 million by 2033. So similar overall size to North America by the end of the period.
And who's leading the pack in Europe, according to this?
Germany. Germany's market is shown growing from about $178 million to nearly $300 million, $298 million by 2033.
Okay, Germany out front. But Europe feels more fragmented, like there are several significant players.
That's a good way to put it. It's not just one dominant country. The report shows the UK and France both projected well over $150 million by 2033.
Right.
And Italy and Spain are both shown hitting over $110 million each. Plus contributions from Russia, Sweden, Switzerland, Denmark, lots of established economies contributing.
So a different picture than North America or Asia Pacific, more distributed, reflecting maybe those interconnected but distinct national economies.
That seems likely. A mix of industrial strength, construction, and consumer demands spread across many countries. Now, maybe South America?
Yeah, let's look south. The report suggests strong percentage growth there.
It does. Starting smaller, $244 million in 2021, but growing to $420 million by 2033, that's a pretty significant jump percentage-wise.
And Brazil leads there.
Brazil's the largest, yeah. Projected to grow from $95 million to $161 million. Argentina also shows a strong trajectory, $45 million up to $82 million.
Okay. Any others mentioned?
Colombia, Peru, Chile are highlighted too, each projected in the tens of millions by 2033. So it suggests, ongoing development, maybe growing middle classes, infrastructure investment across the region.
Interesting. Okay, two more regions covered in the report. The Middle East and Africa. What's the story there?
Middle East first. Also strong growth projected. From around $199 million in 2021 up to $337 million by 2033.
And the key players.
Saudi Arabia leads, projected to hit nearly $100 million, $98 million, by 2033. Turkey and the UAE are also substantial, both looking to be over $50 million markets.
And I suppose growth drivers there might be linked to, like, big infrastructure projects, diversification efforts.
That's often the narrative, yeah, large-scale construction. The report also notes Egypt and Qatar as contributors.
Okay. And finally, Africa.
Africa shows healthy growth too, though starting from a smaller base. From $174 million in 2021, projected up to $293 million by 2033.
Any standouts?
South Africa is the largest market identified, projected to grow from about $57 million to over $103 million. Nigeria also shows strong growth, heading towards $48 million. The rest of Africa category is also quite large collectively.
So even if the absolute numbers are smaller than Asia or North America, that percentage growth in places like South America, the Middle East, and Africa, it's significant.
It really is. And this raises an important question, doesn't it? What is this growth in fundamental tool markets, even in smaller absolute terms? Tell us about underlying development trends.
Right. It suggests that basic building, manufacturing, maintenance, it's ramping up across large parts of the globe.
Exactly. It's a tangible indicator.
Yeah. And that's why this stuff matters. Even if it's just screwdrivers, if you're involved in global supply chains, manufacturing, retail, construction, or even just trying to get a real-world read on economic health, this data offers a specific lens.
It gives you that ground-level view of physical economic activity, where things are literally being built and maintained.
Okay, so let's try and recap quickly. We've looked at this cognitive market research data. It shows a global screwdriver market worth billions, growing steadily.
Driven heavily by Asia-Pacific's rapid expansion, especially China and India.
Right, while North America and Europe are these huge, stable markets showing significant dollar growth just on a massive existing base.
And then you have South America, the Middle East, and Africa all showing really strong growth trajectories, pointing to increasing development.
And just to reiterate for everyone listening, all these numbers, the projections, the regional breakdowns, they came directly from those report excerpts you shared, sourced from cognitive market research.
That's correct.
So here's maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to mull over after this deep dive. In an era where we're all fascinated by AI, the metaverse, the digital world, what does the steady, persistent, multi-billion-dollar growth of a tool as basic as a screwdriver tell us?
What does it say about the sheer scale and importance of the physical economy, the part that actually builds and maintains the tangible world around us?
It's a great point. For all the digital focus, someone still needs to turn the screw.
Precisely. The physical world still needs assembling.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for bringing these sources in and walking us through them. Really fascinating stuff hidden in a seemingly simple tool.
My pleasure. It was interesting to explore.
Okay, let's unpack something you probably used this week, maybe even today. Something that feels incredibly simple, almost. Ancient, maybe. A screwdriver.
Right.
I mean, seriously, how dynamic, how exciting could the global market possibly be for that?
Well, it's funny you say that because while the tool itself seems pretty basic, the market forces, the dynamics shaping how they're made and sold, they're anything but static.
Exactly. And that's really our mission in this deep dive, isn't it? We've been digging into sources, one specifically called Global Screwdrivers Market Dynamics, to kind of get a handle on these forces.
Yeah, the pushes and pulls in this, seemingly straightforward sector.
So you might...
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.
Pushes and pulls in this, seemingly straightforward sector.
So you might think it's just about needing to tighten a screw here and there, but we're going to explore what's actually driving growth, what's maybe holding things back, and some genuinely unexpected trends popping up. You might not think your screwdriver has trends, but get ready.
Okay, so where do we start? What's pushing demand, according to the source?
Well, one of the biggest things they point to is, maybe unsurprisingly, the continued boom in home improvement, DIY activities globally.
That makes total sense. More people fixing things up themselves, building shelves, whatever it is.
Right.
They need these basic tools. But it's not just DIY, is it? There's the professional side, too.
Absolutely. Big construction projects, residential, commercial. That's like a bedrock demand, right? Those sites need tons of reliable, durable tools.
And the automotive sector, too. You need those specialized screwdrivers for all sorts of repairs, engine work, interiors.
Yeah, good point. But here's where it gets really interesting, I think. The technology side. The source highlights some pretty big advancements, especially in electric screwdrivers.
Ah, yes. Like sophisticated torque control?
Exactly.
So you don't strip the screws. Huge deal. And cordless designs getting better, batteries lasting longer, just making things way more efficient, especially for pros.
Yeah, it's a far cry from just, the basic manual driver your grandpa had.
Okay, so those are the growth engines. But what about friction? What's holding the market back? What did the source say about that?
A big one is the rise of those multifunctional tools, the drill drivers.
The ones that can drill and drive screws, just swap the bit.
Right? Why buy two tools if one can basically do both jobs? That's a real challenge for just, the standalone screwdriver.
Definitely. And the source also mentions price sensitivity, especially in developing markets. Cost can be a major barrier to getting those higher end or even just branded tools.
And kind of tied into that is, sometimes inconsistent quality with the really cheap stuff.
Yeah, that can hurt trust, hurt the brands. Plus, you've got mature markets, right? North America, Europe. Most people who need a basic screwdriver probably already have one or several.
So growth there is more about replacing old ones or maybe upgrading, less about first-time buyers.
Exactly. Limits that potential.
Okay, so we've got the drivers, we've got the restraints.
Yeah.
But what's actually new? What are the emerging trends right now?
Well, one key thing the source flags is a real push towards ergonomics and precision.
Okay, so comfort, making them easier to use for long periods.
Yeah. That and also smaller, really accurate drivers for fiddly stuff, like electronics repair,
Right, not just the big chunky ones, specialized designs. And you mentioned smart features earlier. Seriously, is my screwdriver going to connect to my phone?
Well, maybe not yours yet, but potentially. The source does mention it for high-end electric models. Things like digital torque settings you control with an app.
Wow.
LED indicators, even Bluetooth. Maybe for tracking tools in a big company or logging usage. It's niche now, but it's happening.
A Bluetooth screwdriver. Yeah. That definitely makes you pause. What else? How are we actually getting these tools?
E-commerce. Huge shift there. Online bundles, toolkits packaged together. They're super popular. Great value if you're a new homeowner or just starting a DIY collection.
Makes total sense for online shopping. Get a whole set delivered. Easy.
Exactly. And one more thing, sustainability. It's gaining traction.
How so?
Brands are looking at eco-friendly packaging, maybe greener manufacturing, responding to people caring more about the environment.
Oh. So it's not just about the tool itself, but its whole life cycle almost.
Yeah, if you zoom out, what we're seeing is this market for a tool that's, centuries old.
Right.
But it's actively adapting, to tech shifts, consumer habits, global economics, even values like sustainability. It's way more complex than you'd first think.
It really is fascinating how much goes into even the simplest seeming products.
Yep.
So, yeah, next time you pick up a screwdriver, maybe you'll notice if it feels particularly comfortable or if it came in a kit.
Or wonder if the next one you buy might have an app.
Exactly. So here's something to think about. How will these basic hand tools keep evolving? Is there a limit to how much tech you can cram into something like a screwdriver?
And how will those bigger global shifts, consumer values, how will they keep reshaping even these fundamental tools we rely on every day?
Definitely something to ponder. This has been a deep dive into the surprisingly dynamic world of screwdrivers.
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.